Hi, I'm Faiz Masango, and I'm here to talk about drug offences. There are two types of drugs: legal drugs, including alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, and prescribed drugs, and illegal drugs, which include heroin, amphetamines, methamphetamines, cocaine, LSD, and ecstasy. Drug offences are crimes that involve the possession, farming, or trafficking of illegal substances. These offences include possession of an illegal drug, drug trafficking such as preparing, selling, or buying a drug, and cultivation of drugs, and substance abuse. A person known for such offences is Pablo Escobar, who is the head of a drug trafficking organization known as Medellin Cartel. He was known by aliases such as the King of Cocaine, Plata o Plomo, El Padrino, El Patron, and Robin Hood. He was one of the most powerful drug traffickers in the 1980s and the 1990s. He was first arrested for car theft. His father was a farmer and his mother was a primary school teacher. As a teenager, Escobar's offences include selling fake diplomas, smuggling equipment for steroids, and stealing tombstones. After the cocaine industry grew in Colombia, he was involved in smuggling substances such as cocaine. In 1970s, he founded a drug cartel known as Medellin Cartel, where he became the kingpin. His older brother, Roberto, assisted him in this business by handling the accounts. And his partners were the Ocho brothers, who were Juan David, George Louis, and Fabio. He would also use bribery and violence to get his way. He was in and out of jail for his offences until he was killed by police officers in 1993. When Escobar was younger, his brother told him that he would become the president of Colombia. These ambitions consumed him because they influenced him to commit these offences to gain social influence and political power. He was concerned that he was fighting against extradition, meaning deportation of the people for committing acts of crime. He believed that to prevent extradition, that drug offences should be legalized to promote justice and unity. He decided to make a next level chaos so families to seek peace in the USA and Latin American nations. He argued these actions were a matter of dignity for minorities in society other than an opportunity to gain income. He argued that he was standing up for the oppressed and raided who have been removed from their homes. He made friends with people he made friends with doctors and lawyers and people who resided in ghetto communities. And also, he built churches and recreational areas such as sporting fields and parks to develop social connections in order to gain social influence and political power. The risk factors for his crime include peer pressure, negative family environment, poverty, and ill education. Having a poor socioeconomic status was his distinct cause for crime, while early withdrawal from education was a proximate cause of crime, which eventually led to drug offences. There are three theories that support Escobar's approach. Edward Sutherland came up with differential association theory, which argues that crime is learned through close connections with others. Additionally, his motivation to commit these offences were to promote dignity and fairness. And he also committed his crimes to express general needs and values, including stealing from the rich to give to the poor. Robert K. Merton argues that crime. Another theory is social strain theory, which argues that crime comes from social factors such as unemployment and ill education. The 5 adaptations include conformity, innovation, ritualism, retreatism, and rebellion. Escobar undertook the method of rebellion as he was working hard to ensure that drug abuse was made legal. And finally, a theory known as naturalization and drift argues that people use their beliefs to resolve the problems in society. The offender justifies his or her actions to neutralize the crime, arguing that the crime is morally acceptable. The 4 techniques of neutralization include the denial of responsibility, denial of injury, denial of the victim, and condemnation of the condemners. Escobar justified his offences by arguing that it was committed to promote the human rights for people in Colombia. He also critiqued the media, some condemnation of condemners, for making false statements that claim they founded another drug cartel called Muerto Secuestrados, meaning death to kidnappers in Spanish. And the critiques of these theories, the critiques for differential associated theory is that everyone is different and that people can still learn to divert from their crimes. Escobar could have chosen to leave the life of crime despite his environment. And the problem with neutralization and drift is that it's doubtful as to whether the risk factors had been addressed properly, and it was never possible to determine when the reasoning came into being. And the problem with social theory is that it accepts ideas that people should be punished for their crime. And also, this theory can be used to marginalize those in society, such as the poor. And finally, the offender should be educated to divert from their criminal behaviour through restoration other than rehabilitation, in order to promote optimal health so that they'll be able to develop to their full potential. In summary, drug offenders is when an individual sells, possesses, consumes, farms, or imports illegal drugs. Escobar had committed various offences, but he was most well known for trafficking cocaine. With his brother's support, he was driven to commit these offences to seek political and social power. He proposed that he was selling drugs to stand up for justice. Theories argue that his crime is learned and results from socioeconomic risk factors. Offenders can form their own beliefs to resolve social conflict. However, there is still hope for the offender to turn from their crimes, and the risk factors should be properly addressed other than placing a burden of responsibility on the offender. In conclusion, drug offenders should be addressed in society. Individuals such as Pablo Escobar will turn to these crimes due to social and economic risk factors. Although theories argue that such offences are learned, offenders need to be rehabilitated for these offences so that they'll be able to overcome social barriers. Thanks for listening.